At this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Ross for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board and our community. It was certainly great to host our state superintendent here at Seven Oaks in School District 5. What an amazing opportunity to recognize our students and our teachers. Also, October is National Principals Appreciation Month. We recognize our principals. This is a very tough job. Our principals have to be leaders of culture and climate. They have to be instructional leaders. They have to be operational experts, facilitators of professional learning, and master communicators. Hosting all four of those skills is very tough, and I'm very proud to be able to work with the most capable and most enterprising and devoted group of leaders in the state of South Carolina. And so I'm very proud of our principals. I asked them to stand and be recognized for National Principals Month. Also, one of the things I would like to share that this week is, you got to say it slow, Red Ribbon Week. And for Red Ribbon Week, we talk about the things that we do to help our students with substance use disorders. A lot of conversation has been had of what are we doing as a school district about vaping and substance use disorders, alcohol in our schools. And so I want to thank Student Services Planning and his department, Dr. Harris and his leadership and his team for putting together the series Shatter the Myth. Tomorrow from 5 to 8 at Dutch Fork Middle School, we will have the Shadow the Myth series where they're providing dinner, there's child care, but we're inviting the families to come out. We believe the best way to be able to be preventative in the matters of vaping and drug use and substance use disorders is really engaging the families. The stronger the community is, the more powerful we'll be in helping our students navigate these very dangerous waters when it comes to substance use disorders and vaping in schools. So I'm very proud that this is set up. We have a lot of resources, family discussion. So we ask that everyone, if you're able, there's dinner and child care provided. So we ask if you can come on out Tuesday, October 28th from 5 to 8 at Dutch Fork Middle School as we educate our families about what we can do to ensure that all of our students are safe in our community. We do this because we're a system guided by three critical questions. The first is, why do we do this job? That's because we love and we grow our students. The second is our mission. How do we accomplish that? We're focused on academic, social, emotional growth and development. And then what are our outcomes? That's our strategic plan. And these are 24 strategies, 165 action steps to ensure that every student feels loved in our schools and has demonstrated academic growth in our schools. We're proud of the results of our school district, and we know that we're preparing our students for academic success. We're preparing our students for career readiness, and we are working towards that goal set by the state of South Carolina that by 2030, 75% of our students or more will be at or above grade level. We measure this with measures of academic progress, or our MAP scores. And we can see last year's fall MAP scores compared to this year's fall MAP scores. This is the challenge ahead of our teachers, ensuring that every student that is in the blue is maximized to their fullest potential, and those students that are in the red, that we are individualizing instruction, using all the tools capable in our hands to individualize and meet their needs so that they can grow to the next level. And we're seeing success on that each and every day. When it comes to our graduation rate, we look at this by week, and we can see that thanks to innovative strategies that our high schools are using, monitoring the students, putting names behind the numbers, we are ahead of where we were year to date last year on students on track to graduate. We have not crossed that line as set forth in our strategic plan, but we are leading the way and making higher gains than we did at this point last year. What's the secret to success? Well, there's many different things that we're doing in School District 5, but it all comes down to a system of multiple supports. They are tiered to address academics, behavior, attendance, mental health, and what our students and parents have asked us in our advisories, college and career readiness planning. We want to focus this year on Tier 2, increasing those targeted services for students that are not having success at the Tier 1 or the universal services that are provided. And we believe that by doing that, we can help our students move from that notion of I can't to I can. So we ask all parents to join us. On our website, you can go to our academics page and you can see all the I can statements that your students are going to be tested on. Your children are going to be tested on, assessed on during the year. And together we can move our students from I can't to I can in all things. And we believe that because this is the year of transformation, Operation Transformation, and that begins with what we believe. That begins in the heart. And so I thank all of our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and our students for working diligently to that aim. At this time, we'll talk about our August financials, and we'll have our CFO, Ms. Heather Tucker, come forward with the August monthly financials. Ms. Tucker.
Good evening, Madam Chair, member of the board, Dr. Ross. Have for you tonight our monthly financials. Maybe? There we go. For August. I wanted to just highlight a couple of things, especially after having Ms. Campbell here. Before I start that, I want to just thank the finance team. Thank you for recognizing them tonight. We are well into that budget season, or that audit season right now. Our audit is due December 1st. So the next 4 weeks, the finance department is a little crazy working on that. So I just want to thank them for taking the time to come tonight and for their hard work on that. So I will start there and not forget. But just want to highlight a couple of things that Ms. Campbell talked about earlier. For your August revenue statement for the period ending August 31st, you can see the property taxes, like she said, we don't start to see those really come in. I know the tax notices have gone out now, but you don't start to see those come in until December. Really January, we'll see the bulk of our taxes come in. And so we're kind of right on track to where we were last year. With the state aid to classroom, we receive about 8% of that every month. If you remember, there's that 5-day adjustment period where we see a little bit of a restructuring for the state aid to classroom based on day 5 enrollment for the charter schools. And so they shuffled that a little bit. We saw about a $300,000 decrease from our state aid to classroom after the day 5 count. We saw that in our August payment. And then we will see our 45th day adjustment. The State Department has said that we might see that as early as November. Typically, we get our state aid to classrooms paid out on about the 21st or the 22nd of each month. So we will anxiously await and see what that number is, November 21st or soon thereafter, what our adjustment will be based on our 45th day. But for right now, we're right on track, about 16% of our state aid to classroom received. You can see there our homestead exemption, property tax relief, and the Act 388. We haven't received any of those. As Ms. Campbell mentioned, you typically don't start to see those until October, November. So we'll start to see those payments coming in then. And then our EIA, the second part of the state aid to classroom, down there under other financing sources. Again, we receive about 8% of that each month. And so we're 2 months into the year. We're right on track to where we were last year. So year to date, we've received about 8.25% of our total revenue through August. And then as far as expenditures go, if you look at our salaries line, we're a little bit higher than where we were last year, but we had an adjustment to our pay calendar for this year. With schools going back into session earlier, we moved our pay calendar up essentially 2 weeks, so teachers weren't going a full month without a pay. So we have had an extra payroll to this point this year, so that's a little bit off from last year and why you see that discrepancy. But overall, our expenditures are right on track with where we were at this time last year. And I did want to say, you do not have any budget transfers as part of this monthly packet because through August 31st, there have been no budget transfers. You will see that first report with your September monthly report. So I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Tucker. Do we have any questions? Ms. Huddle, and then Mr. Satterfield.
I know you don't know what the 45-day adjustment is going to be yet, but do you have a guesstimate?
I've calculated what I think could be our worst case scenario. Don't necessarily want to share that because it's kind of a back of the envelope number. Since there really isn't a per pupil allocation just kind of done some quick calculations on, based on our 135th day last year, what we were budgeted in the budget, and just some quick and dirty math on if we lost X number of students is what it would look like. But what we're seeing right now, even though we've lost certain number of students, our ADM doesn't look like it has dropped as much. So we are seeing that weighted number almost higher than what we would expect. It's almost like we've lost students that have a lower weighting, and we've gained students that have a higher weighting. So our ADM and our actual student numbers, and Dr. Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, but our ADM and our student numbers don't necessarily correlate one-to-one. So based on that ADM, I don't know that, and again, we don't know what the whole state looks like, but based on the ADM that we're seeing right now, I don't know that our loss will be as much as it could be, if that makes sense. Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to guess, but I think that was the trend that we're seeing. We're used to hearing numbers. So if you look in your packet, you'll see the 45-day report, which is 622 students less than what it was last year at 45-day. But our weighting is heavier.
Is much heavier.
And so you're funded on the weight of the student in comparison to the weight of the rest of the state. So it's very, so we don't know all the factors to guess. We're going to talk about some of the things we think we can do in the budget amendment part.
That is correct. Did that answer your question, Ms. Huddle? Okay.
My question is, with all the freezes in federal funding and all the programs, are we impacted by that, or do we anticipate any impacts from that?
So I know I'd spoken with, Missy mentioned the USDA and the federal food service funds. We have received our reimbursements for August, our August 15th reimbursement. So we don't know that we haven't heard of any schools that haven't gotten those reimbursements. We don't know if we will get our November reimbursement, but our food service fund balance is strong, and so I don't feel any worries there. We actually, thankfully, my finance staff got some federal claims in the day before the shutdown happened, so we got everything in up to that point that we could get in. Now, whether we get those funds, we're kind of waiting to see. But we've hit that point in the year where we are cash poor because we're not receiving our tax funds, but we should be okay. Hopefully this doesn't go on for a long time, but we should be okay for the next couple of months.
Anybody else?
Fingers crossed again.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Tucker.
Thank you so much.
Last is Dr. Harris, Chief of Student Services and Planning, comes forward to the podium. I would like to talk about our discipline model and our philosophy behind our discipline. We had a discussion with our principals about some of the things that were addressed in terms of how are we handling student behaviors within the school district, and that is all outlined in our policy. We have a board policy on behavior code, and then an administrative rule, which is our code of conduct. And so at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Harris to come forward and to present about our discipline model. Dr. Harris.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ross, members of our board, our community, and all of our staff. We wanted to certainly take advantage of that opportunity that you just described to highlight our administrative rule, which is our Code of Conduct Handbook. And in an effort to do that, we've asked our very capable Director of Student Services, Ms. Kelly Brown, to come and give us highlights in reference to that Code of Conduct, and then we'll respond to any questions you may have.
All right, good evening, Madam Chair, School Board, Dr. Ross. Thank you for allowing this opportunity for us to talk. I want to end with our boots muddy, but in order for us to do that, I want to raise this up about 500 feet so I can address how we tackle discipline across all sites in School District 5. When I look at the term discipline, I always use the equation accountability plus intervention equals our discipline. And for tonight's conversation, I'll hit quickly the intervention component. Intervention, when we're talking intervention, we're talking about mental health services, providing referrals to social workers, school counselors, clinical counselors, providing restorative practices, offering mentors or check-in, check-out. That is our intervention side of that, so that we can support the student as they are changing their decision-making or their behavior. On the accountability side, we address the behavior through our code of conduct. And per the state Department of Education's guidelines, we rank those offenses in 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 3 behavior is classified as criminal conduct. That is behavior that includes alcohol, drugs, firearms on school grounds. Those result in a recommendation for expulsion and mandate the requirement and involvement of law enforcement. Level 2 offenses are disruptive conduct. Those are offenses that I classify as that changes the behavior of a school or changes the behavior of a classroom. So a fight, defiance, refusal to obey, disrupting the operation of a school bus. Those are your level 2 offenses. And those consequences can range from an ISS, in-school suspension, an out-of-school suspension, and possibly a recommendation for expulsion. Also, depending upon the severity of the level 2 consequence, it may involve law enforcement as well. Then you get down to level 1, which are classified as behavior misconduct. Those are offenses that include dress code, IDs, tardies. One of the things I encourage our students is I think of level 1s as the invitation for students to manage the basic expectations as they prepare for the school day. When I encourage our students to be responsible in those areas, what they decide to wear to school is decided before they come to school. If they're on time to school, that morning routine is at their home. Their IDs are often left on the kitchen counter, or this is what my kids say sometimes, left on the kitchen counter. And so we want our students to be self-managing, high-performing kiddos, and so those are an invitation that we really want them to look at those expectations as they prepare to enter the school building. Certainly, with those consequences, it can range from a parent conference all the way up to in-school suspension. As we're tackling, let me back up on the dress code and the IDs. The partnership with parents with our level 1s are so significant there because nothing is more frustrating to a parent to get a call at 8:30 in the morning, just when they settled in at work, to say, hey, can you bring your child an extra pair of clothes? On the other side of that, and I'm a person who speaks in truth on this, is that it is an interesting situation sometimes when you ask a male administrator to address female dress code. That the shorts are too short, or the midriff is showing, or that the top is revealing. That's an odd situation that we can ask our male administrators or male teachers to be in. So the parent partnership there is so vital as students prepare for the school day before they enter our campuses. Now, we address all 3 levels of our misconduct through the 4 pillars of discipline. And so I'll go through these real quickly. On all 24 of our sites, our administrators are expected to address discipline through these 4 pillars. So first is our law, policy, and procedures. Procedures are built to support our policy, and we know policy is written to support law. So they adhere to law, policy, and procedures. Communication, one thing that we expect of our administrators and school building principals in our office is that we are accessible and we are available. Communicating those expectations out, you will see, is often takes place in newsletters, news shows, parent newsletters, teacher newsletters, faculty meetings, parent conferences with parents, and then also certainly through our SIC, our PTO, and then oftentimes we send videos out on our expectations. We have town hall meetings and grade level meetings to communicate those expectations for our kids. Then we have active and engaging supervision. I think it's fair to describe I don't believe in excuses, but I do believe in painting the picture of reality. And when you're looking at active and engaging supervision, you look at our campuses, and our elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school range administrators from 3 administrators on a campus to our secondary campuses that could have 4 to 5 administrators. So let me start with the maximum. If you have 5 administrators, let's say 1 is off campus sick or at professional development, or they are in IEP or 504 meetings all day. The second administrators are assistant principal of instruction. They have a concentrated focus on academics, coaching, teachers, testing, so they don't deep dive into discipline. So that leaves 3 administrators to enforce our code of conduct. The way I could think about that, and maybe my brain is so engrossed into football because of my boys, I think of that as you put 11 players on the field to take another set of 11 players on the field to play a game called football. And the expectation for each of those players is to cover 100 yards. So 11 players to cover 100 yards. 3 administrators are asked not to cover 100 yards, not asked to cover a building, but to cover the entire perimeter of a school site. That is why we ask our teachers. That's the why behind teachers are needed at class changes, lunch duty, carpool duty, afternoon dismissal, so we can have additional people with boots on the ground. That's why we ask our students, if you see something, say something. Utilize the Stop It report. And so far, we have almost 1,000 reports that students have made this year that have allowed our administrators to tackle those issues as well. So let's say a student makes a Stop It report, that there's a vape and a knife that they saw in the bathroom. So you take one of those administrators, those 3, you take one of those, and you can't call the student down because they could dispose of the evidence along the way. So you go grab the student from the classroom, you escort them back to the office. It's a male student, so you call another male administrator to do the search. And during the search or during the conversation with the student says, well, I bought it from someone or I exchanged it with someone during the class change, and so now you have to go pull that other student, search, investigate, see what's going on there, pull camera footage, gather witness statements, student statements, teacher statements, anyone around the area statements, call parents to bring them in, to hold them accountable. And that has to be so thorough because a level 2 or a level 3 offense could be a recommendation for expulsion. So they have to have a thorough investigation to address those offenses. But meanwhile, there's class change, there's lunch. Never is a level 2 or level 3 offense take place when there's nothing going on in the school building. And so that is why we ask our teachers and our students to help us out in that. Also, for the schools that have expectation coaches, this is when they really come into play. Expectation coaches do not administer discipline. What they do are their boots on the ground. And we know presence prevents problems. And so expectation coaches, they are the ones that can help us walk the building, walk the bathrooms, reiterate the expectations that are set forth by administration. Expectation coaches started at our Title I schools, our elementary Title I schools. It's grown to be at 10 of our campuses. But as we know, we have level 1 and possible level 2 and level 3 offenses at all 24 of our sites. The benefit of the expectation coaches is that they can remain the boots on the ground when those two administrators are dealing with the level 2 or level 3, because you can't pass off admin work to anyone else in the building. But you can ask an expectation coach to monitor the campus and be vigilant and visible so that we can be where those hot spots are or to see what we need to address as administrators. Also, too, schools that have expectation coaches, when teachers call for support, oftentimes I was at a school today and a radio call came on and they said, we have a level 1. We know, because level 1 is behavior misconduct, we can send an expectation coach to reiterate those expectations. The call on the radio, if it says a level 2 or level 3, we know that the different presence needs to arrive into that situation. So our fourth piece is our documentation. And that is just, again, preservation of factual information, and also, too, it helps us to keep the interventions. If we've already done that intervention, we need to go to the drawing board. If we've already done that piece of accountability, we don't need to repeat things that have not been effective. So our documentation helps us along with that decision-making. Our administrators, as they tackle the 4 pillars of discipline, they have support for their implementation of these expectations. They have collaboration with internal and external resources. So we have our school resource officers, our safety officers, our expectation coaches, the special services department, our social workers, our mental health staff. So we have a wonderful amount of support and resources as we're dealing with discipline on our campuses. We also have professional development. We don't say the principals and admin do this without supporting them. So just in student services alone, we offer over 50 professional development sessions each year. So what does that mean? We have a new all the new administrators are in a cohort that meet once a month. Elementary admin meet 5 times a year. Secondary admin meet 5 times a year. We also have think tank sessions. Those are 30-minute sessions for all administrators throughout the year, and that is a hotspot, an action step, so you can log off the meeting and put it right into play. And so those are think tank sessions that we offer to everyone. So a lot of professional development to our admin teams, partnership with our stakeholders, with our parents, and with our community members. And then certainly we look at the data. What's the data tell us? And so one thing that we started this year, we purchased a new software called Simple Discipline. Simple Discipline, what I like about it, it's becoming a very popular program throughout the state, but also too what I like about it is it gives real-time data analysis for us to look at. So a couple of weeks ago, I sat with all the principals, and we looked at the time of day, the day of the week, the classroom or the hallway, the location, the day, down to the hour of the day that has the highest discipline. So we know as a district, Tuesdays at 11 o'clock, our 8th and 9th grade students could have some discipline concerns in the hallway. That is a hot spot that we've identified this week. And so now we can go back in the concept of football, go back and write a new play for when we get back on the field to address that hot spot. Because next week, the data could tell us there's a new area of focus. So our discipline data does show us that as of today, 14,424 students have not received one referral. And so there is a lot to celebrate about students owning their expectations and wanting an environment of teaching and learning that they are holding themselves accountable to those standards. Our stop-it reports, I told you we have almost 1,000 stop-it reports this year that have been able to be addressed by our administration. Our expulsion hearings, we have 58 expulsion hearings this first quarter. That number has not been in the 50s since 2019. And so it's interesting to see the data dropping kind of before COVID. I don't know if I can say the COVID word, but a few years ago. Our positive, another thing I like about the Simple Discipline is it tracks our positive office referrals. We have over 4,000 positive office referrals that have been sent home to our students and our families, which I think is extremely important for parents to get notification of the great things that their kids are doing at the school. So we, as we look at our discipline data, I know that they are hot topics, and I know they are hot spots. That happens in every school and every school district. So I'll go ahead and tell you what we are working on and what are we doing to look in growing in those areas. So certainly with dress code and IDs, we are talking with, we've met with all of our principals. Principals are sending out those reminders to teachers. And then also, I'm hoping soon we're going to start some reminders from the district level to remind students to come to school dressed for success, that they're dressed appropriately, they have their ID, and they have all the materials that they need to be successful when they come to school. Bullying is a hot topic that always comes up, and so one of the things I looked even in the Stop It report, of the 1,000 entries, we've had 125 reports of the bullying. When you look at those, when you take a deep dive and you look at those incidents, there's some that say the student stole my pencil. One report said a student was rude to me. One report said that a student kicked my chair. Now, those all could be other code of conduct offenses, but what I saw is a teaching opportunity for us to make sure that we're defining bullying for our students, and we're defining what those interventions and accountability will look like. So how we're doing that is our student services officer, Mr. Pollock, is leading a subcommittee in our strategic plan. It's a bullying subcommittee that will create a process, almost a flow chart for how we will address bullying allegations and how we will provide that intervention and accountability for the offender, and then provide that support for the victim. So that are things that we're continuing to monitor with bullying. Vaping is something you hear across the nation, so certainly we run into that from time to time. And so for vaping, vaping is a level 2 offense. The first time that a student has a vape violation, they are given an out-of-school suspension with the intervention of completing an online module. It's about a 6-hour course that they are invited to take part in. And then also the second offense is a recommendation for expulsion. So we're monitoring our vape numbers, and just had recently at a high school 2 students complete the Vape Educate. There's also a vape-free component to that software, so that we can share that with students as a proactive measure and an awareness component to vaping. And then certainly special services always comes up as well. And so we know that when students who receive support through an IEP or 504, all students, so let me back up and say that all students have rights under the law. If a student receives an IEP or 504, then certainly they have some additional layers of due process and procedural preventions. And so one thing that we are going to look at is review that federal law, and I think it'll be a great conversation to pull our support from each of those, from student services and special services, our attorneys, and put us all in the room and talk about what our current practices are, our language needs to be, and how we can support both departments as we work with our students in those cases. So that is a quick overview of discipline in our district. I'm thankful that as we address these hot spots or hot topics, we do it through our 4 pillars. We do it consistently through our code of conduct so that we can provide accountability and intervention to our students. And I know that I have to state that I know there's always room for improvement. We're not perfect, but I can tell you this, we're better than most. And the work that administration does in the areas of discipline doesn't even scratch the surface of academics, sports, security, facilities, testing, extracurricular activities, monthly drills, all of those expectations we hadn't even touched on. So the work that they do that's shown in our data, I have to celebrate their efforts as we continue to chisel away at our hot spots and hot topics. So thank you for this time tonight.
Thank you, thank you, Kelly. This was helpful. Do any board members have any questions? Mr. Satterfield and then Ms. Barnhart.
You know, I'd have a question about what principals do. First of all, I'm going to thank all you principals. Their job is very difficult, and it's gotten more difficult over the years. The disrespect and the nonsense that kids, they always find something else. And so you have to be flexible and think outside the box. So I thank you for all you do. I know many of you, and I've worked with several of you. Some of you are my former students. That's how old I am. I do want to ask you a question. In the category 1, the discipline handbook used to be different. It was structured different.
Right.
In level 1 offenses, what are all the options if it's a level 1 offense? I know there's counseling the kids, obviously, is one, calling the parent.
Right.
Is there a day out of school for level 1?
It could, and you're exactly right. It used to be flipped, that the level 1 used to be the most severe behavior, and we used to have 4 levels of misconduct. So when you come back to to now the level ones that are those minor infractions. Those are more, if you look in our code of conduct, it's an array of consequences. Level 3 is a little more scripted. It's a recommendation for expulsion. Level 2s are a little more scripted. Level 1s get into that array. It could be parent conference, admin review, refer to counseling. It could lead to a suspension if you have a repeated offense. If you have a repeated offense of a level 1, then I'm curious about, are you not following the directions of an administrator? Are we heading into a level 2 kind of decision-making on the student's behalf? So it could.
Yeah.
But
Well, let me tell you the reason I ask is
Sure.
every school is different. I've visited a lot of the schools, and when I was working in the district, every school is different. They have different issues that they have to deal with, and
Right.
that's just the way it is. Somebody gave me some advice that helped me, and that was, number one was when Dr. Ross and I worked together, this was something that we did in our schools. If we had a specific issue that was a continuing problem, and I'll just use teacher disrespect because that was one of the things we dealt with.
Right.
I had the whole admin team. We all picked up classrooms, and we had assigned classrooms. We went around to every class, talked to every class personally, said, look, if you're disrespectful to this teacher, the teacher walks over and presses a button. I pick you up, you go home. The teachers felt like they were supported. The teacher's job is not to have to deal with discipline. I mean,
Right.
they do,
That's right.
but it's not really their job.
That's right.
The second thing was, and this really helped me get along better with my teachers, and that was, if I was an assistant principal and a kid was being a knucklehead, and they were sent to me, and whatever I decided where it fell in that discipline code, the assistant principal would go back to that teacher and say, I know you sent Johnny, he's the most famous person in the world, I think, in schools.
That's right.
And so this is what I did, and talk to the teacher. And the teacher might say, well, I know I sent you a referral, but there's not enough room to tell you all that Johnny's been doing.
That's right.
And so the teacher felt like they were supportive, and they would tell me sometimes, they'd say, look, or I would say that if Johnny, this happens again, you make sure you let me know. I appreciate you giving me the feedback. So that was sort of a gap in there that really helped with teachers. It made them feel like they were being supportive. The one thing that did frustrate me, and I know this is probably something that is frustrating principals and assistant principals, is the students that had BIPs. And, if you get two kids that are fighting and one kid gets sent home for 4 days and the other kid gets Saturday detention, and you can't say anything because
That's
of the
right.
BIP.
Right.
But one of the adjustments that we made was we kept visiting. If there were a couple of instances the BIP isn't working, so we decided we were going to revisit those BIPs and make sure that the parents understood. But that's just some suggestions that somebody shared with me. Again, I know that those are different, very difficult propositions to deal with students that have any sort of behavior intervention plan. I understand that. But thank you for what you do. I know that your job is very difficult, and I can tell you from the time I started in administration, I started at the elementary school and I went to the middle and the high school. Every year there were new and different things to deal with. And so I know that's not getting easier. I know your jobs are getting more difficult. And I'd also like to say that, you have the support of this board. We get a lot of emails from parents, about this or that, but we want to support you. If there's something that is a continuing issue, or if there's something to do with discipline, if you've got suggestions, I request that you reach out to your fine superintendent that you got there and let him relay if there's anything that we as a board can do to help make your schools run more smoothly and more effectively with fewer issues. That's why we're here. We're here to serve you. So,
Ms. Barnhart?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to echo Mr. Satterfield's statements because I don't think it can be said enough. Thank you all for everything that you do, principals and administrators. You're all highly, highly valued and greatly appreciated. So my question is about the expectation coaches. And you said that they're in about 10 campuses that we have.
Correct.
How do we get more? How many are in each school? What is their job title, I suppose you could say. But I think that that is probably a very beneficial thing to have, and I can see where it would help if they were in more schools. So I was just wanting to get some more information about them.
I would.
You want to speak
yes.
about what is an expectation, what they're doing, and then I'll talk about our ask.
Sure. So what they do, expectation coaches. So certainly, like I said, they started out at our Title I elementary schools, and then with the development of the Nest a few years ago, we added expectation coaches to some middle and high schools. And so certainly, you know, if I live in, I would love to see them everywhere, because expectation coaches, they reiterate the expectations that are set forth by administration. They reiterate the expectations that are set forth by the parents. And when those administrators are tied up dealing with a level 2 or level 3 offense, the expectation for the expectation coach is to be visible, to constantly be monitoring the campus, to be walking in and out of those bathrooms, to be at lunch duty, to, when the tardy bell rings, to walk the campus and clear the hallways. And so I go back to the phrase that I always say, presence prevents problems. And there's a lot of square footage to cover in a school building, and so the presence of our expectation coaches helps us cover those grounds.
We have in our proposal, it's not for action today, but I think it's 8 additional expectation coaches for the secondary, but this would be pending our results of finances for our budget amendment.
Ms. Huddle?
I'm going to differ with you for a minute, and I'm probably the next to the oldest person on here, but I went to a high school with over 1,000 kids. We had 1 assistant principal, we had 2 guidance counselors, we had 0 expectation coaches. And let me tell you, we were every bit as mischievous and bad as kids are, whatever word you want to use today. But there were, the expectation were your parents, and if I wore inappropriate clothes to school, I got sent home. If I misbehaved in class, my teacher had the tools at his or her disposal to deal with it. And I'm not faulting the principals, I'm faulting the entire system. When I would say 3/4 of the calls I get from parents who are upset, most of them are on the verge of pulling their kids from our schools, and in many cases already have. And every single one of them, it's not about academics. It's not about my kid didn't make the football team. It's about my child got bullied, and the bully did, you know, the bully's there the next day. And same thing with teachers. When I talk to teachers who have retired early or left or moved to other school districts, it's always about discipline. They love the kids. They love the other teachers. And we had a presentation, and what's killing us are charter schools. Well, that's why. You know, and I don't think tonight's enough, but I think we need to have a workshop, and we need to understand what we can do. And I don't think throwing more people at it is the solution. I think you have to have repercussions that match what happened. You know, if they forget their ID, what happens? You know, and how much are we giving, how much are we allowing teachers to do? I just think there has to be a better solution, because children are not inherently worse off, worse children than they were when I was a kid. We just knew, and word would get out, you know? If a kid got sent home for wearing inappropriate clothes, guess what? Everybody tightened it up, because word would get out. And I think we've got to look at this from a different perspective than just throwing more people at it.
Dr. Ross?
I was going to ask, I certainly appreciate that perspective, because that's one of the things we deal with is a lot of, when I went to school, this happened. If you can go back to the slide of the 4 pillars, and one of the first pillar is we must adhere to the law. There's been a lot of changes in the law that is governing what happens to students. Those men and women are in charge of following the law. When it comes to discipline, there is no uniform behavior consequence that we can give to all students. In fact, it's very individualized to that particular student. I would love to say that if you did this in our schools, this will happen. But the law does not allow that. I think we've made mention to behavior intervention plans and different identifications. And I don't want to hamstring our principals with an expectation that does not meet the realities of the law. The reason that we are asking for expectation coaches, and they're here today because this is the work they have to do. We'll talk about it tonight, but they got to do it tomorrow. And they're looking for solutions. A camera can see it, but an expectation coach can actually correct it. And so I think as we look at talking about this, we must talk about the laws that are of today that are impacting their work as it deals with disciplining students and that notion of holding students accountable. It is vastly different than when I was doing principal just 10 years ago. So I just wanted to share that these 4 pillars, while it may seem like have not changed over 20, 30 years, they're much different today.
Mr. Scully?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brown, and thank you for the information. I think that our administrators are often, the need for them is often underestimated, and even more than that, they are underappreciated. There's an unfounded narrative in parts of the community, and we kind of heard it, that we have too many administrators. And I think your presentation makes it very clear that that's not the case. And I think when you look at the issues, one, I think there's part of the issue is there's probably an inherent bias in the job itself of being an administrator, because it's kind of the age-old management versus labor discussion. And so the administrators or the management, they're always gonna, the focus tends to always go to the teachers and the labor, and the managers always get underappreciated. But also part of the job itself, and I think the job that they are doing is a testament to how well they do their jobs, because they're doing such good jobs that we don't have the issues. We don't always have, it doesn't always rise to the level of our attention because they're doing their job so well. And so I think that part of them leaves them out of the, kind of undercuts their appreciation. The other part, to Ms. Huddle's point about comparing the past versus the present, and Dr. Ross touched on it, is the times are just different. And one of, from a legal standpoint, but also from a framework of parental involvement, I think you used the term parental partnership. Well, to me, when you say, well, the answer isn't to throw more people at it, I think that's exactly the answer, and I think that's exactly what parental involvement and parental partnership actually is. We are actually asking for more people to help in the form of parents. That's the role the parents are taking on, that we're asking and needing for them. And that's probably the difference between today and yesterday. Is yesterday when we were in school, we did have a higher degree and level of parental involvement, of parental partnership. Ms. Huddle speaks to it in her example. That was a living example of that involvement. The parents were involved. That was her example. We don't have that today, and to the extent that we don't have it, we also have an additional layer on it, as not only are the parents not proactively as involved as we need them, but they actually, when they are involved, they push the other way and they make it harder for us. They work against us. And so the answer is more people. We absolutely need every single one of our administrators. We appreciate you. We thank you. We value you. We need you. But we also need the parents to do their job as well.
Mr. Bainum?
Just briefly.
Sure.
By the end of December, will have visited every school in our district. And just some observations when y'all are working on plans. I've noticed, let's just say, blatant violations of dress code. Girls, guys, it doesn't matter. Teachers standing around, they see it. Just wondering, I've even heard, pick our battles. So just, when we're talking about enforcing this, we want to make sure that we're getting it to everybody, and, we're standing by that, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And that's certainly something we've talked about in our most recent think tank session with our administrators. I was at a high school today and with a young lady, and as we're walking in the building, I said, go ahead and pull that shirt down. And It wasn't something that she wanted to do, but it immediately went, a simple reminder could turn so combative quickly that you have to address each expectation carefully, but nonetheless, it has to be addressed. And so that's certainly something we've shared with our administrators, and I hope to do and communicate out from the district standpoint as well. One thing I'll also say, and you all have mentioned it too, which I may even be out of line in saying this, but if you see Dr. Harris pull me off the mic, then you know. But also, too, I really appreciate when you receive the concerns from parents that you refer them to the school building principals. There have been some concerns that I know have come to your attention, and when I bring it to the attention of the principal, they had not been informed of it. And so I can promise you this, any concern that is brought to student services will be addressed and communicated to the school, whether that is us visiting that school, whether that is us meeting with the parent, meeting with the kids, meeting with administration. It will be followed up. And so I appreciate the times when parents reach out to you all. The very first question I ask anytime a parent calls our office, have you spoken with the school building principal? They are expected to be accessible. They are expected to be available. They are expected to handle discipline under all of these 4 pillars. And so if there is a problem that we know about, we are not going to be negligent in our business of handling discipline. We will get that addressed. And so,
Ms. Huddle?
I had one more question about
Sure.
the Stop It app, because you were talking about the kicking the chair and stuff. Is it getting used at all to swat or bully? Like, do we have, was occurred to me as you were talking about that false reports, I guess. Do we have false reports, and then how do those get handled if you believe there is a false
yeah,
report?
that's a great question. So when we originally started Stop It, I think it was 6 years ago, we got some interesting reports like the milk is cold in the cafeteria, and you're going, get back to teaching and learning. And so certainly as students navigated through the newness of that app, we had to filter out some of those reports. Now we rarely get a false report. When we started Stop It, I thought we were going to get a lot of, there's going to be a fight in the bathroom, there's going to be. A lot of our reports are, I'm going through, I'm dealing with, my family is going through, and it's a lot of people asking for help quietly, and which I was surprised at that. But we also get the concerns of what are being seen in the classroom or what they have heard or saw on social media. But if we recognize, because it is an anonymous app, what you can do, you can't track the student. But what you can do is you can look at user number 12856 has reported 4 claims, and those 4 claims have been the milk is cold, the milk is cold. And so we can freeze their account for 30 days to make those, to stop the false reporting. Because when those Stop It reports are made, it goes to the devices of every administrator and our office and our safety officers. And so there's a lot of eyes on each Stop It report. And certainly if it is even life-threatening to an individual or to a campus, it then goes to the Stop It agencies. It could go be filtered to law enforcement. So there's a lot of eyes on Stop It that are there to provide the intervention and accountability. So when we get the false report, we respond quickly, send the user a message. There's expectations that for you to uphold as you're utilizing this app. Before they submit the report, the very bottom is a checkbox that says, I submit this information is accurate and I'm using this with some digital responsibilities. So if there's a violation of that, we prohibit that for 30 days.
Yes, I had one more thing. I was listening, sort of listening between the lines in some of our conversation. I want to make sure the principals understand this. We get emails for all kind of stuff. I don't care if it's redistricting, if it's, the lunches aren't good enough, the chicken nuggets were cold, or whatever it might be. I want you all to know that just because a parent sends us out of concern or something that's happened at your school, we don't act on it. If we do anything, my canned answer is you need to talk to that teacher. You need to know that we support that chain of command or chain of operation or however you want to say it. It should start with the teacher. If the parent has an issue with the teacher, they need to go to the teacher. And then the teacher, and then through the assistant principal, and the principal, and if Dr. Ross or his staff needs to deal with it, that's okay. But again, we said, and I said earlier, we are really here to support you, and I don't want you to feel like the board, just because we get an email or a complaint from a parent, that means that you've done something wrong or the teacher's done something wrong, and I don't want your teachers to feel that way. Because we know that they're in the classroom every day, and sometimes we got parents nowadays, the first thing they say, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to sue the district, I'm going to sue the principal, I'm going to do whatever they can do or whatever they threat to do. But we follow that sort of that chain of command, so to speak, so that you go to the teacher. You deal with it through the school. It's not the board's responsibility, and it is not our responsibility to deal with those things. So you need to know that. And you need to also know that when you speak up, we're here to support you. That's what we're here for. So y'all are sitting over there quiet as little mice over there. And I know you probably have a lot to say, but you're not going to say it. But if you ever want to come and speak to us and talk to us about anything, we are here for you. So you need to know that.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, before we wrap up this session or turn it back over to Dr. Harris, I'm not sure what the plan is. I didn't ask for permission to do this, so I'll ask for forgiveness. I'm going to take 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Ms. Dilly, will you stand up?
Uh-oh.
You're picked on because I know you. Tell us what your biggest discipline issue is in your school. I can't hear you. Just not completing assignments. What would help with that?
It takes relationships with students to get them to try. It takes building motivation.
Okay.
That's our key thing.
The student-teacher relationship?
Student teacher, even we've started mentors within our own building. So there's somebody outside the classroom that can help encourage that. But typically our behaviors worked around the work being too hard. And so if I'm going to fight back, not do it, put my head down, walk out of the room, that's our biggest issue.
Okay. Karen, what about you?
Our biggest issues right now are cutting class and tardies. And the cutting class is not,
Cutting class and tardies?
cutting class and tardies.
Okay.
And it's not I go to class and I don't return. It could be one or two things. I don't go to class for the first 30 minutes, then I go to class, so now I've got that cutting class time. Or I'm in class for 30 to 45 minutes, I leave to go to the bathroom and never come back. So those things.
What would help you?
What would help me? An expectation coach.
Okay. Mr. Davis, what about you?
Same thing, cutting class, tardies, things like that, just helping us in restrooms, so students can follow expectations when it comes to babies sometimes. So I think what would help us is boots on the ground, someone to come in and help us.
What about someone from a middle school?
Dr. Doney?
Ours is similar. I might add
Crossroads.
disruption, but I think that's the different result of the same behavior, trying to avoid work. I have an expectations coach, and it is awesome. She is typically the first responder to the classroom. We have a system if you need help, and she's typically the first one that responds, and then we'll farm out what needs to go from there. So if you go to an administrator, behavior interventionist who needs to jump in and help. But I would say similar level one behaviors are our biggest.
One more. What about you, Melanie?
I'd have to agree with my colleagues, simply disrupting class, not adhering work done, those types of things. Having an expectations coach, we have one at Early, is paramount. Our expectations coach is amazing. She really supports our students and our teachers and our administrators every single day. We couldn't do our job effectively without her.
Ms. Dilly is at a Title I school. Is someone else at a Title I school?
Ms. Harris? Crossroads?
For other people that are at Title I schools, especially with younger kids, is the ability or willingness to complete classwork a theme you're seeing there also? As an issue? I didn't hear you.
Task avoidance.
Okay. And that's back to the teacher-student relationship, you would say? Yes, no? I mean, it's fine if it's not, I'm just asking. I don't have a magic wand, but I thought that it would be helpful, because although Kelly did a great job presenting, y'all are seeing it day to day, and I thought it would be helpful to kind of hear some of what y'all are seeing day to day, which some of it doesn't surprise me, especially at the high school level, cutting class and tardies, that makes sense. At the elementary school, not getting things accomplished, that seems to make sense. Mr. Satterfield talked about some of the emails and stuff that we get, and we do for a variety of things. Some we get it, some is, a little wonky, but that happens too, right? It happens. I thought this information was helpful for us, but something I think that could be helpful, maybe for parents, would be, is this. I hate saying more information, because, like at my job, I feel like when people tell us that we should send out certain things or do certain things, 9 out of 10, we're sending it or doing it, but people don't always read email or whatever, or like Dr. Ross does the videos, because in this age, you would think that'd be better. There are people who don't like videos. It's like hard to find that sweet spot. Right. But if I have a kid in a school and my kid is getting bullied, as a board member, hearing about the number of students that haven't had a consequence and haven't gotten in trouble, that's remarkable. As a parent, I don't care. That's the reality, right?
That's
and I
right.
don't mean me as a parent. I just mean the parent
Absolutely.
of said kid that is, that is being bullied. And
Absolutely.
I don't know what the solution is there, how we fix some of the disconnect, because I also recognize that not every household is set up where everybody is able to be as engaged or at the school every day, because of, I may work a 9 to 5 and can take my lunch and come out and meet with my kid's teacher, and somebody else may not have the opportunity to do that. So just thinking about that communication piece, Mr. Satterfield talked about, I don't remember the wording that he used, but basically it was talking about the discipline where some kids get disciplined differently, maybe because of special needs or whatever. And so we can't tell a parent that that's why a child did not get a harsher consequence.
That's right.
But what can we do to make that parent feel like that we aren't dismissive of whatever it is that their kid is going through? And I don't think that that's a principal issue necessarily. I think it's just like a community thing, universally. How do we fix that? Because we talk a lot about making sure that our kids feel seen, valued, loved, whatever. But I think we have to sort of take the same approach with our parents, because they're our doorstop. And so if they don't feel seen and heard, that's how we really lose kids. Kids aren't, telling the parents, I'm not going to that school anymore. Parents are making those decisions for whatever reason. And so how can we, better reinforce that? But I think that that's a district level thing to figure out. But that's just a thought.
I like that. That's great. And also, too, if there's bullying, like Ms. Huddle said, there's bullying, I certainly would want to know that. That needs to be addressed. If there are concerns going on in the building, we certainly want to know so that we can address it. One thing that I will celebrate, because of your support, because of our wonderful parents, our students, and the work of our administration, we are not sitting here tonight talking about excessive firearms in our district. We're not talking about excessive drugs in our district, excessive alcohol, excessive fighting. The concerns that were noted by the school building principals, those are things that we will continue to tackle. The concerns that were brought up, those are things we will continue to address and tackle. But there's many things to celebrate the work that we are doing here in our community. So,
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you, Dr. Harris. And I just really appreciate the principals being here. You heard the will of the board, but you know the support that you've asked for, and I appreciate you being here. Those who called on and spoke in public session very well, I appreciate you. Thank you so
y'all.
much. That was very good. But just know that we understand what you're going through, and we look to give you the resources. All set? You bet. So you can go home now. I will say this, as they transition, I want our community to answer systematically was the question, how do we deal with this systematically? And I think a community has to ask the question, who is responsible for disciplining the child? And if we don't have the same answer for that, then I think we're never gonna get to the end point of this. Who is responsible for raising the child, for disciplining the child? And you gotta understand, discipline means not to punish, it means to teach, to train them up in the way that they should go. Who is responsible for raising a child? The accountability seems to fall on these folks all the time. It seems to fall on the teacher all the time. That's not the neighborhood I grew up in. Grandma told me that everybody in that neighborhood was responsible for raising that child. Yeah, that's exactly right. You get in trouble by everybody on the block. And I think until we as a community have the same values in terms of who is responsible for raising that child, I do think, and I see Ms. Friend over there, we can come back and talk about what's called the Individual Disabilities Education Act. Because in 1997, I believe, it was amended to have what's called MDRs, or Manifestation Determination Reviews. So when I say the law has changed, if you practice the work they're doing after 1997, a violation of an MDR is a violation of a student's civil rights. We don't protect them for violation of civil rights. So we don't want to handcuff them, but we need to understand what they're going through. And so I think we can have that conversation, but I think we just need to have a full understanding of what that law is and the impacts on them. Am I wrong about that? So I just wanted to make that claim. The biggest thing, and I'll end, is Dutch Fork is going to play Irmo Friday. And so if you live on, is it Emory Lane, Dr. Hampton? Emory Lane, you may be seeing these in your mailboxes. We are going to close that street down starting at 4:30. And so Reed Gunner will get the Silver Foxes in there before 4:30, but we have to close from St. Andrews to McMillan Circle. That street will be closed. We're expecting a huge crowd. Tickets are on sale now, and so we appreciate it. This is a huge District 5 state championship battle, so we want to just make you aware of the lane closures. Thanks to all of the safety team, Dr. Harris, your team, Dr. Gary, operations, to make Friday, October 31st, Halloween, successful as we host the state's premier football teams in School District 5. That's our D5 story, and we're working every day to ensure every student feels loved in our schools and has demonstrated academic success in our schools. That concludes the superintendent's report, and I stand for any questions.
Do we have any additional questions? Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Ross.